Welcome to the Helping Stone podcast, a podcast ministry of Ebenezer Studios at Ebenezer UB Church in Greencastle, Pennsylvania. For more information, podcast episodes, sermons, or teachings, visit our YouTube channel, Ebenezer UB Church, or go to welcometoebenezer.com. And now, enjoy today's episode. Colossians chapter 3, starting in verse 1. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. That is going to come in handy in our conversation today. Welcome, everyone, to the Helping Stone podcast. So happy to have you here. However you are taking this in, whichever media you're using, welcome to the show. I want to talk about our, I'll introduce, I'm Pastor Josh. Wait, I want to go back to that one. Hold on. I'm Pastor Josh. Me. And as always, I'm joined by my cohort, Pastor Chip.
You can't handle the truth.
Good times. All right. Hey, sponsor for the show today is our VBX June.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry, we missed it. VBX June 20th, Saturday, June 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can pre-register at the church website. Welcome to Ebenezer.com. You have to spell the whole thing out. We know it's a lot of letters.
Word 2, T-O, not
Word
number 2.
Welcome, T-O,
Yes.
Ebenezer.
Now, let me just say what I'm really excited about VBX is after the VBX part, we are having ice cream.
Yay! That is the best part.
What's that date again? What's that?
We have a secondary sponsor too, by the way.
Well, hold on, wait. Talk more about ice cream. You can't just talk about ice cream and then keep on going. Come on now.
Ice cream.
We're
looking forward to that
Yes.
Saturday morning and afternoon. We're going to be talking about Jesus.
Yes.
We're going to be singing some songs.
Yes.
If we can find a donkey, there'll be a donkey involved there somewhere in the lesson.
I was not aware of this.
Surprise.
Now I'm really excited.
Pastor was the last to know.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
We're going to have a little bit of lunch for everybody.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about Jesus some more and do some things. And then we're going to have ice cream.
I'm glad that Jesus is the main
Yes,
feature.
yes,
That's the best part.
But the ice cream is there. It's going to be for the kiddos that are there for the VBX experience.
Yep.
As well as their families. And we're inviting the whole church.
This is one of the things we always struggle with every year is we have VBX for the kids. What do we do for the parents? We really always am like, we want to do something for the parents. So this is kind of a thing. We want to have an ice cream social, little family time. We may, we're inviting the whole church family to come.
Yes.
It's not just the families who are involved. But that'll be a great time. Probably be just about an hour from 2 to 3.
Yep.
We're working on a few avenues trying to get it sponsored by someone local. And so when we have more information on that, we'll say that. We don't want to say anything now.
That is all happening at Jerome King Playground.
Yes. Jerome King Playground.
Downtown city of Greencastle.
Yep. Is Greencastle a city?
Is now.
It is now.
We just labeled it. Yes. June 20th, VBX from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Lunch is included. You can pre-register your kids, kindergarten through 5th grade. We are open to pre-K as well.
Right.
On a case-by-case basis. And there'll be an ice cream thing afterwards. Yeah.
Yep.
Our secondary sponsor.
Nitro Youth Cake and Pie Auction tomorrow night. That's Friday night. And it's always a great time of fun and fellowship.
Yep.
We raise a little bit of money for the youth missions. And it's just a great time to get together.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
And this year we have a special selling of some lawn equipment from the church.
Actual lawn equipment, not.
Yes, actual lawn. There's a leaf blower, a string trimmer, and a push lawnmower that is no longer needed. And they will be available for sale. Yep. The money we get from them is going back into the property fund, though. Everything else we raise will go to the youth.
Yep. So that'd be a wonderful time.
And we might need a little extra money next year.
Yeah.
Here's not a surprise. Church is going to Lithuania.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
There's a good number of people signed up for that.
Yeah.
Interest. So
I'm excited.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
That was pretty cool. I saw that on Sunday. With us today is Mr. Doug Dobbs. He was recently, yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
He was recently elected to the PA State Republican Committee. He is a John Brown interpreter, which will be featured at our July 1st America 250 celebration. I'm very excited about that.
Very cool.
Thank you very much, sir. That would be great. He is the husband to wife Sal. He is a history teacher. That's how I met him. And we just now labeled him the bearded historian.
Yes.
I do consider him a historian. And I know you said that's a club that.
Yeah, there's no membership.
Which is awesome.
I read a book. I'm a historian now.
Is that how my history teachers did it in school?
They probably had more official qualifications than I do.
Listen, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. And here's why. And this is why we have you on the show, because as I grow older, I find out more and more truth about history.
It ain't necessarily so.
And I find myself saying a lot, my high school education was a total sham. Like, that is not what I learned.
Well, I used to tell my kids, if at some point down the line you say, well, they never taught us that in school, I said, it's your own fault because I taught you how to learn. I didn't teach you everything you should know.
Yeah.
So this is not a gas station where you fill up and go forever.
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Okay. Well, welcome to the show, Doug.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
I wanted to have you on for a while.
Yeah.
I love conversations like this with historians because you guys tell the best stories.
Wow.
And I can feel like I can just sit here and listen to you all day long.
I think of myself more as a storyteller than a historian.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. I like to think of history as like it's just a story, not just a story, but there's a great amount of storytelling and elements of story within. I mean, that's how we pass down history.
You can look at history as sort of a dry, names, dates, and places,
Yeah.
and next sheet, memorize the next list.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people tried to teach me that way when I was coming up, and it did not go well. And so my approach has been to tell stories. That's how that's how I really learned history, is listening to stories from my mom.
Yeah.
And I've got an oral history in my family that goes back 400 years to New Amsterdam.
That's fantastic.
So it's like, I live and breathe in stories.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, one of the reasons that we brought you on the show today, I wanted to ask the question that I think a lot of people ask, because growing up, this is the way I always thought, that America at its founding is a Christian nation.
Yeah.
And
depending on how you define the terms.
Sure. And that's something we can do. And since growing up, that notion has been challenged more and more, even by pastors who, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, look, guys, let's just take the W. Like, you know what I mean? If the founders were theists, okay, fine. Like, they still use the Bible as the book of Deuteronomy is quoted like more than anything else in their writings. Yeah. I know John Jay, the very first Supreme Court justice, used the Bible like regularly in his opinions and everything. And so, guys, let's take the W and just walk away. Like, why are we challenging this?
If you want biblical Christianity to get a W.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
If you don't, now's the time to reinterpret.
Right. That reminds me, I don't know if we'll get to it, but I don't know how much you know about the Crusades, but I'd love to talk about it if you know.
A fair amount.
Okay. All right.
I can tell you stories.
Cool. So yeah, let's talk about that. The idea historically of America at its founding being a Christian nation.
This is where you get into the definition of terms.
Yeah.
Is a nation Christian because the majority of its population professes that? Is it that because the dominant worldview of its population, whether they're personally Christians or not, tends to be biblical Judeo-Christian thought forms? What defines I think any way you slice it, you can't ignore the elephant in the room at the founding of the country.
Right.
From the very beginning on. I mean, who do we look back to? We look back to the Pilgrims. Jamestown was actually a little bit earlier, But when you look at our historical memory, you look at Plymouth colony as sort of the beginning of things, not the Jamestown colony.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, Jamestown, we have learned now, cannibalism, raw profit, they were doing some terrible things down in Jamestown.
Yeah.
And so you can see why people would have turned towards something a little more inspirational, aspirational at Plymouth colony. That was the model for, the city on a hill where we would be able to look with pride as an example to the rest of us about how to conduct ourselves as a society.
Right. Right.
Anytime you get 10 people in the room, you're going to, human depravity is going to erupt. So there was no perfect city on a hill.
Yeah.
And they tended to forget that, I think. Over time, it degraded. But yeah, I think America has been roughly up until maybe the 1960s, that consensus begins to erode. Francis Schaeffer in the 1970s, got on the rooftops and was waving the banner and saying, "Hey, look, we're losing our moral consensus."
Yeah.
Boy, did he call that right?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite books of all time is "How Should We Then Live" by Francis Schaeffer, with the video series that goes with it. I mean, that's a whole history of Western civilization in 10 easy chunks. And I'm deeply grateful for his ministry.
Yeah.
Because that really lit a fire under me to try to become a good scholar, to become an educated, informed citizen. A whole lot of things got built into my life in those college years that I'm very, very grateful for.
Yeah.
And I've never lost that desire to carry that message out and say, look, no, this is what it was. Now, it may not be what you want it to be.
Right. Right.
But it's what it was.
Yeah.
And when you look at history, you can't, and it's a very popular pastime these days to reinterpret it to the eyes of now. Like all the founders were evil because they owned slaves.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the original, slavery not good kind of guy. But it means I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Sure.
Simply because Jefferson owned slaves, he couldn't have any good ideas about freedom and equality.
Right.
Well, clearly he did, and so I tend to be a little bit forgiving on that issue.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at slavery is it's kind of like oil. Think about what our civilization would be like without oil.
Yeah.
I mean, it's woven into the warp. And if somebody discovered, 10 years from now that your lawnmower was actually sentient and deserved lawnmower rights, that might be a little bit tough. You'd have to rearrange your world a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the country was going through. It was like, what are the rights accorded to these people? What rights do they have? Not accorded to these people. Inherently, do they have? They are inalienable rights given by God.
Yeah.
And Brown, to bring up Captain Brown, and others said, no, they're no different than us.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve the same human rights that everybody does. And Brown was so convinced of that idea that other abolitionists thought he was a little bit nuts and took it just a little too far. He would address people of color, of African descent, as Mr. and Mrs., the same as you would address someone else as a peer.
Yeah.
Not as aunt or uncle or Jimmy or whatever nickname you had for it.
Yeah.
And other abolitionists were shocked by that. Richard Henry Dana, who wrote 2 years before the Mast, was an ardent abolitionist. He's hiking up in the Adirondack Mountains and stumbles upon John Brown's colony up there in the 1850s and is aghast that he would address these people there who were former slaves as equals and sit at table with them and eat dinner together as peers. He thought that was he'd never seen anything like that. And Frederick Douglass said, I was willing to live for the black man. John Brown was willing to die for him. So if you're willing to die for somebody, I think you have some pretty high regard for those people.
Yeah.
And so that Christian perception of people are created in the image of God and we dare not do anything to destroy that image.
Yeah.
Is there from the very beginning, whether it's acknowledged by everybody or not. Were there people who were, patronizing houses of ill repute and drinking themselves into despair? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was not a perfect colony of perfect people walking around,
Sure.
Didn't happen. But even the people who stole would say, yeah, stealing's bad, but I do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The biblical worldview, the Judeo-Christian worldview, still shaped their view of what the world was. They might not follow it, but they acknowledged that that was the right thing to do.
Right.
Margaret, what's her name? Not Margaret Sanger. Margaret I can't think of it. She was an anthropologist, went around the world saying, Scripture says that God's written a law in our hearts. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So she did this tour around the world, looking at different cultures and saying, well, in this culture, it's okay to steal. In this culture, it's okay to do adultery, and so on and so forth. And so therefore, the Bible's wrong. Well, somebody did a follow-up study, went around the same place as she had been, and say, so tell me, you think that stealing's okay? Is it okay if people steal from you? Oh, no. This other culture, you said guys say that adultery is okay. Is it okay if someone has sex with your wife? Oh, well, no. It's
right.
there. It's there.
Right. Yeah.
One law for me, one law for you.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think one of the amazing things about North America and the colonies here, and particularly the United States, is these are sort of wrapped in mystery to the rest of the world. They're hidden away from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And at a certain point in time, God used people who had his ways of thinking in mind, to better or lesser extent, to come and populate that and build a whole new place that was free of a lot of the entanglements of Europe, some of the failures of European society, and sort of, draw a line and start over again. And use that. If you look at the history of the world, no nation has given more to other countries around the world than the U.S. Not in governmental terms, but out of my pocket, out of my wallet.
Right.
Personal terms.
Yeah.
We have been and continue to be an extremely generous country.
Yeah.
You can't go and point to that from almost any other country in the world. And I think that's very telling. If you've got a sense of God's stewardship over those things, you can't help but give.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And we have. A couple of years ago, I got to go down to Asheville, North Carolina, and help out after the big floods down there with Samaritan's Purse. And man, I mean, just an outpouring of effort by people of biblical worldview across not only them, but primarily them, to reach out and help people who had lost everything.
Yeah.
Just was breathtaking to see, just so encouraging. So, yeah. I think that we have been a Christian nation for a long time. It's in our architecture.
Yeah.
And you go down to Washington, D.C., and you look at, the Supreme Court, the Capitol building, the biblical imagery and explicit texts are all over the place.
Yeah.
It's not by accident.
Right.
This is what was important to them.
Right.
And just like when the Israelites crossed over the Jordan River into the Promised Land, God said, take up stones and put a pile here and take a pile here.
Yeah.
And when you walk by, you tell your son, that's what I did here. That's what God did here. And it's not about you. It's about what he's doing.
Yeah.
And they felt that same compulsion, I think. Don't remember. Sometimes I refer to myself not as a historian, but a professional rememberer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because this is where we've been. This is where we are. Where do you want to go from here?
Right.
And I have a cousin. She raised 3 kids. God bless her. And she said when they turned to be teenagers, she only used 2 phrases with them. One is, I'm so sorry. And the other was, how's that working for you? That was it. And she's wonderful. And I think about that kind of like now America's kind of like needs that teenage thing. Like, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Not very well.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get back to, biblical foundational values. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be a Bible carrying, Bible thumping Christian. But I think that those who are need to stand up and speak up. I think the biggest problem America has right now is not the threat from the left. It's the apathy of the right.
Yeah.
It's, when you look at the turnout in Franklin County, where we sit right now, 13% of eligible voters turned out.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many people are eligible? 13% of registered voters. That doesn't include eligible voters, and that doesn't include the population. I mean, when you look at the number of people who select things and have power, it's a very tiny minority. Why? Because they're motivated. They feel a sense of responsibility. They want to be good citizens. And I'll tell you, if you voted in the last election, you had the vote of about 5 other people, because only about 15%. That's not bad. This is why I don't teach math. 15 goes into 100 times.
Right.
Yeah. So, your power is multiplied by other people's apathy, which could be good, but But on the other hand, I think people need to be informed and be engaged. I beat that drum a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's you can't have a republic with an apathetic voting population.
Well, a lot of the founders said as much. So.
Yeah, we have built a government for moral and religious people. It is fit for the governance of no other. John Adams.
Right. Yep.
And he was not a biblical Christian. He was a Unitarian. Unitarian? Yeah, I think it was Unitarian.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a pretty amazing statement.
Yeah.
To make.
Yeah. All right. You said a couple of things I want to hit on.
Oh, please. Yeah.
The architecture of Washington, D.C. I was just yesterday listening to the Steve Deace show. Mm-hmm. Awesome podcast that I really enjoy. It's like a lot of biblical worldview stuff. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of mix politics into it. And that's how I need, because otherwise I'm like, I can go off the rails, right? So anyway, he just took a trip to DC and did a tour with the speaker and several other people in TPUSA Faith and a couple others. Yeah. And that was one of the things he brought up was just how much the scriptures are built into the architecture of the foundations, literally foundations of the country.
Absolutely.
And so I think if people want to make the argument, like they shouldn't make the argument we're not a Christian nation or we weren't at the founding.
I don't think you can make
don't because you sound like an idiot. Yeah. Because it's literally written into the stones of our government buildings. Okay. And in the artwork and everything else. I would make
one caveat.
Okay.
I could see where someone can say we didn't live up to everything Christianity preaches.
Sure.
No contest.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking worldviews. We're talking moral frameworks. We're not talking about performance.
Exactly. Okay. And I think that's where people go to the performance aspect, which, I mean, you could make the comparison with anything. Was the church in its infancy living up to Christian standards? No, we have a whole New Testament telling us otherwise.
But what's the standard? The standard is perfection.
Right. Exactly.
God level perfection. I'm not there.
Yeah.
and I don't know anybody else who is. And well, maybe. but Ray Stedman used to be a pastor in Palo Alto Bible Church years ago.
Okay.
And I always loved it. He preached a sermon one time and then he was talking about this issue of hypocrisy. And he said, absolutely. We're all flaming hypocrites because we preach perfection. Yeah. We expect perfection. We want to attain perfection. We're always falling short.
Right.
So yeah, if you want to say, Doug Dobbs is the biggest hypocrite in the world, guilty. My love is not perfect. My performance is not perfect.
Right.
And when people criticize on that level, I think it's a valid criticism. I think we should pay attention to because it helps us understand how we're being perceived and how we can maybe change and improve and portray Christ better.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as a substantive reason to reject Christianity or the establishment of a Christian nation.
Right. Yeah. Harping on the performance rather than the, the foundation of it all. Yeah. Chip, I don't want to cut you off, so just jump right in because I have other questions, but
I have nothing to say at this time.
So, Doug, as a former history teacher, as a now historian,
gleefully retired history.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you are seeing currently in our system that could and should be improved if we just maybe look back 100 years and see, listen, this is how they did it back then. Maybe we need to bring some of that up here. Like what's from the deep recesses of history, of American history, which isn't really that deep because we're still sort of, I feel like America's a teenager. Like we're just sort of in the teen years.
Oh boy, are we?
Of like, as far as the history of the world. Yeah. Anyway, that's a good point. But,
I think if I, get my magic wand out, if I could change anything right now, it would be the educational system.
Okay.
Because that's the root of what got us to where we're at, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think you can go back 100 years to the 1920s and, Dewey and that whole progressive system in education. And I grew up in the 1960s into the 70s and I saw that happening. I'm a victim of new math. They did not do the times tables with me, which at the time I was really glad about. Now it's just like, oh, what a huge mistake.
Yeah.
I can't do math with beans.
Yeah.
And the worldview that went. I can vividly remember my third grade teacher, Mrs. Chabot, Bedminster Township Public Schools, and it would have been early '60s, 2, 3, somewhere around there. Whenever the Supreme Court said you can't read the Bible in school, and she was Catholic in a predominantly Protestant town.
Yeah,
and yet every morning she would read a scripture passage with us before we started school.
Amen.
I don't remember us praying together, but I do remember reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. And one morning came, and the edict had come down from on high. She could no longer do that, and she wept with a bunch of third graders.
Yeah,
at the sorrow of not being able to bring God's word. Now, Mrs. Chabot was a screamer. I'm just saying. she did not have modern methods of classroom management.
Right.
But that impacted me deeply to know that meant that much to her, that she would be grieving with us as kids, that she could no longer do that with us.
Yeah.
And that's left a permanent mark in my psyche. How much of an impact morally on my generation did that withdrawal of that make?
Yeah.
Now, by the same token, I don't think you could start that again now, because I think the cadre of teachers you've got right now would not treat that as something to be treated respectfully.
Right.
We talk about respect and honoring all points of view a lot, but when it would come to that, I don't think I would trust, unfortunately, the majority of teachers with that kind of task.
Yeah.
But here in Pennsylvania, we've got this huge, release time education thing, opportunity. How much of that goes unexploited?
Yeah.
Because we're not paying attention, we're not engaged. And I count myself in that too.
And I think Greencastle, more than most in the area, takes advantage of that.
It does.
Really, really well.
Yes. And I am so thrilled by that. And I think that you can see that reflected in the tenor of the town.
Yeah.
I think Greencastle and Antrim Township, I see a difference from when I go to other places around the state or other states. This is a town which has a sense of community, which is unlike anything I can remember anywhere I've lived since the town I grew up in. And I attribute a lot of that to that sense, the moral zeitgeist of Greencastle.
That's a good word.
Tends to have a biblical orientation to it. It's
Yeah.
not 100%. It's not perfect. But people will do spontaneous things for each other in a caring, loving way.
Yeah.
And you don't often see that in a lot of places. I was in Gettysburg on Memorial Day, and they had a Huey helicopter on a flatbed as part of the parade. It was kind of cool. And so I had marched with a group of people, and we had ended up at the cemetery, and we were starting to walk back down, and the helicopter's like right in front of me with two guys who were clearly Vietnam vets. And some guy ran up with a step stool when he was getting off, and he was pretty unstable and on tippy. And there's like probably within 15 feet, 50 or 100 people. Nobody ran up.
Nobody moved.
Nobody moved. I said, dang it, I'm dressed in, period clothing from the 1850s.
Right.
So I walked out there and said, sir, can I help you? And I got his hand and we helped him down. And I had got some feedback later from friends who were close by and said, how weird is that? You were here honoring veterans, and here's a veteran in need.
Yeah.
Nobody moved a finger.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. We are sent an invitation to all the public servants in Franklin County to attend the July 1st celebration of America.
Yeah.
Just got an email today that Mayor Ben Thomas is going to, I want to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
He's going to attend. And he said in his email, I'm going to come and I would like to present the history of Greencastle and our Christian heritage. And I thought that is fantastic.
Absolutely.
For the mayor of the town to offer that,
that's
I think I think that's great. If I lived in the borough, he'd get my vote perpetually. I'm sad I don't live in the borough. So
Well, I used to be an usher at a large church in Blacksburg, Virginia, when I was living down there. And it was a well-attended church. We had to have everybody sort of stand up and move in so there'd be empty seats on the edges. And oftentimes the empty seats would be down front. So it was a rule with us that when you got 3 or 4 steps down, you looked to see back if they were actually with you or not.
Right.
Because he who leads when no one is following is only going for a walk.
Right.
In front of 500 other people going, okay, that didn't work. and you can't lead where people aren't willing to follow. But the fact that the mayor of Greencastle is willing to lead that direction indicates to me that people are willing to follow that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Greencastle is kind of a unique entity to start with. Not only is the mayor involved with this, but you look at some of the other things that goes on. The old home week, even though it's only every 3 years. I
was thinking about that when we were talking. Yeah.
And then they have the traditional Christmas tree lighting.
Yes. They close down the square.
Yeah,
everybody sings
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Like,
they do some phenomenal things.
Yes.
To build that community.
Yep.
And not only, you said a leader's only leading if somebody's willing to follow.
Right.
But they create the opportunity for those followers as well as leader.
Right.
Yep.
Through those things. Yeah.
Right.
So
if you want to look at somebody who really failed as a leader, but was fantastically successful, look at Moses. The people who are going that way, he's like, no, over this way.
Yeah. What you're saying about the Department of Education, I have always been, up until recently, and I mean, yesterday listening to that show, and again, as you said, the very buildings, all the scripture that's written in there.
Amazing.
I've always been of the opinion that, like, man, the Department of Education, first off, it was founded under Jimmy Carter, which right there, it's like everything that guy did, we just need to.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I like Jimmy as a person, as a fellow brother in Christ.
Right.
Okay. Right. Best ex-president we've ever had.
So I've always been like, man, we just need to get rid of that. Cause I mean, I'm personally a fan of small government. If we don't need it, like, cut it, get rid of it. But I would say one thing that I would absolutely be totally okay with if the Department of Education used their budget for this is that if they organized field trips for every high school in America to come to DC.
Oh yeah.
And here's the field trip. You're going to visit all the stuff like the Capitol building, you get to go through and see. And so that everyone from PA to Nebraska to California, Alaska, and I realize there'd be a lot to manage there. I'm not saying it's an easy thing, but I think it's so important to get young people in to see the foundations of our country. Yeah. And I don't know if it would even happen because of, like you said, the teachers. Yeah. And I'm not, this is obviously not all.
Oh, no.
Painting with a big, broad brush here.
But there was a significant percentage of teachers who would twist that opportunity into something that it wasn't intended to be.
Maybe we just bring the students and not the teachers. We can let them be their like teacher in service time. The field trip to DC.
You can take a vacation and bring half the kids for people. Feel like a release time education.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I've said for a long time, for like 30 or 40 years, that we should move the capital, just pick it up and move it to Salina, Kansas, because that's the geographic.
That would be fantastic.
And everybody would be then within 2 days drive of the state, of the nation's capital.
There you
go. And then you could go and experience this a lot easier. It's a week to California. It's too long.
Yeah. So, I think that's a great idea.
I'll tell you another story. A grand idea. I think that every high school should offer a program, and maybe make it competitive. I don't know, and have a bus set up with sleeping bunks like the old railroad cars in the back, comfortable seating in the front, and a fold-out kitchen on the side, and that senior spring semester when everybody's checked out and doesn't want to do anything in school anyway, have all your academics finished by Christmas of that year. Yep. And you spend the spring going to see the Grand Canyon and
that would be great.
And Mount Rushmore and Yosemite and the Texas beaches and spend a few hours standing in the middle of a field in Kansas where you can't see a tree. Or anywhere. Yeah. You can practically see the Rocky Mountains if you look carefully. I mean, people don't realize how big this country is.
Yeah.
How vast and how varied it is.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate as a kid. Every summer my dad had an Airstream and we would spend 6 weeks on the road every summer. He was kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey. I want to go see America with a big suitcase. Ours was an Airstream. and he wanted to go and see stuff. And I came along later in Mom and Dad's life. And so they had the funds to do that.
Cool.
And so I grew up all from about, kindergarten on through elementary school, all those years. I've been to all those places.
That's awesome.
Sometimes multiple times.
Yeah.
Not always willingly.
Yeah.
But I got to see people at church when we came back home say, Irene and Harold, you got to stop taking that boy. He's by the time he grows up, he'll have seen everything. And they didn't know that by the time I grew up, it all changed. So I got to go see it again.
Right.
Oh, darn the luck. But yeah, I think this is a place that we own.
Yeah.
And who would own a property and never go and see the roof or the basement or the top floor? And I think it'd be a wonderful learning experience. Experiential learning is a cool thing.
Yeah.
And to take that and make that part of a lot of people's experience, I think would be a beginning of a turnaround to value the place that we live and acknowledge the accomplishments and the suffering that people went through to build the place.
Yeah.
I say this often, we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Oh yeah.
And we think we're dwarves and we have no understanding of how much has been suffered.
Yeah.
And we're reaping the benefit of generations that went before us.
Yeah.
I've been privileged. My great-great-grandfather marched from Chantilly, Virginia to the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863, part of the Union Army. And I've been privileged 3 times now to retrace that route. We've got all kinds of data on where they were and stuff. And in reproduction equipment. So I'm walking up the same hills, carrying the same weight.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like I'm looking at the same end. People didn't shoot at me when I got to
Sure.
but I'm entering into his experience about as closely as I could humanly do without threat to my life. And you enter into that experience and you read the history books a lot different.
Yeah.
It's experiential archaeology in a sense. You're entering into that experience in a way that just reading about it doesn't cut it. And I think if people could do more of that, what's it like to live a day in 1777? The war is on. The British redcoats are running around, confiscating cattle and burning people's houses. And here come the Continentals, and they want the same things.
Right.
I just want to farm, and the uncertainty of that and the chaos of that, and to realize, I live a pretty darn good life.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about somebody smashing through my back door at 3:00 in the morning. They have a very sad welcome if they did. Likely not to repeat the experience.
Right.
But I mean, that's not a huge concern on the front of my mind.
Yeah.
I've lived in San Francisco and not the best neighborhood.
Right.
And I've been in other parts of the country where that is an immediate concern for everybody when they go to sleep at night. They're not sure they're going to wake up in the morning. And the chaos and the uncertainty and the fear of that, it's what everybody experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm very glad I have an appreciation for that. And I wish more people did.
Yeah. And the fact that like many around the world today, that's their reality.
Oh man.
But for us, for America, it's only certain, and sadly, it's only certain parts of the country.
When the whole thing in Nigeria, where the herdsmen would come through and massacre a whole town full of Christians.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here and it's like, I've read military history all of my life. I'm not a trained soldier. I know how to defend a town. I've got the means to do it.
Yeah.
Why am I sitting here comfortably? And my brothers and sisters
are
experiencing that.
Yeah.
I struggle with that still. I'm 72 years old. I mean, I'm not Rambo here, but I can teach.
Yeah.
And what gives me the right to be comfortable sitting here?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doug, I want to back up just a little bit.
Please do.
And this is a multi-point question.
Okay.
All right. Before we started, you talked about growing up in northern Jersey, right?
Yep.
You've already said that you've been to San Francisco, a couple other somewhere in Virginia, I believe.
Blacksburg. Yep.
You said it earlier, I think before we were on, about Oregon and some other places.
I've been all over. Can't keep it, John.
Part of the question is what caused you to travel around so much? Secondly, what brought you to the center of Franklin County here?
Okay.
And maybe you could share a little bit about some of the differences that you've noticed in the culture as you've lived around the country.
Yeah. I went to boarding school when I was 15. I kind of think I was probably a handful. My parents didn't really want to go do that again. They've done that 3 times before. But it was a blessing in disguise. And so I ended up living away from home the majority of my early adulthood, teenage and adult years. I always had the wanderlust. I attribute that to my mom and dad. And I got that from them.
Right. Yeah.
my graduation present from my parents for graduating high school was a one-way ticket to Dallas, Texas.
Nice.
I was getting home on my own. And this is 1972. And yeah, it was a different world. Explo 72, just parenthetically, it wasn't that they wanted to get rid of them. There was a big evangelism explosion thing that Campus Crusade did in Dallas, Texas. And so they gifted me a flight down there, and I was going to hitchhike back and visit people. So the wanderlust, the bear, what's over the mountain kind of thing. That's always been part of me to see what's next. When it came time to go to college, when I graduated high school, I become a Christian the Thanksgiving of my senior year, and my big goal when I graduate high school is never go to school again. Yeah, tell God your plans and listen to the laughter. Yeah. And so I became aware. My goal was to get a big old house and start a Jesus house. And people could come and crash there, and we do drug rehab, and we do Bible studies and stuff, and life would be cool. And because I'd seen a few of those before, and I thought that looked really like fun. And the Lord made it really clear to me over this course of that summer hitchhiking around that wasn't going to happen easily, and would take some sharpening on my side. And my mom had been attending a group called the Christian Women's Club. And back in those days, they would have like a little ladies' luncheon thing in a hotel, and then somebody would give a craft demonstration, and it'd be like a little inspirational talk at the end of it. And then the ladies who came on a regular basis and developed some regularity, there would get invited into a home Bible study. And that's where the rubber would meet the road, and they were confronted with the claims of Christ and so on and so forth. And the real evangelism and disciple making took place in those small cities. And I will always be grateful for the people who ran that program, because that's where my mom really met. She'd been religious and in church all of her life. Her family had been United Methodist way back into the 1800s. Yeah. And so I owe them a great debt, because she shared a book with me called Late Great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey. Mm-hmm. And I had rejected my parents' faith as I came into teenage years. It's like, yeah, he wants to go to church. It's boring. Can't have balloons. It's old music, And so the people who ran this had a connection to a Bible school out on the Oregon coast. I hated school. I mean, I really didn't like school. And they had no tests. There were no grades. There were no papers. It was like an overgrown Bible study. And there were 3 hours of class in the morning. You broke for lunch. You had the afternoon pretty much free. And then you had dinner. And then there was 2 hours of class in the evening. And if you wanted to really dig into Ezekiel, there would be a guy, they had no faculty. They would have 2 people come in and teach 1 course each for a week. And then they would leave, and then 2 more people would come the next week, and you'd have university professors and senior pastors from big churches and so on and so forth. So they could provide a really in-depth education over all 66 books of the Bible and most of the major Christian doctrines in the course of a year. Guess what my room, board, and tuition was for 1 year, 1972 into 3. $770.
Wow.
Room, board, and tuition for the year.
Wow.
And it was on the Oregon coast. It was and you worked so many hours a week, in the kitchen or keeping the lawns mowed or whatever to pay for everything, keep the cost down. And it was exactly what I needed. And it was the very first year that they had started. So they were brand new at this, and we made up the rules as we went along. And I probably had 2 rules in my name, but it was glorious because the Lord really got a hold of me there seriously in that year and deepened my faith dramatically. And I was walking out on the cliffs along the Pacific Ocean there, and it wasn't a verbal voice, although that has happened to me. But God really put it on my heart as I was contemplating Colossians 3, that I needed a lot more than what I was going to have when I left Ecola Hall. And I needed to think seriously about college, even though I hated academics. And so I applied to one college. People are going to see this, right?
Yeah.
My graduating GPA from high school was 1.77 on a 4-point scale. I hated school. I got through by the skin of my teeth and the mercy of a few teachers. And here no college would have touched me, particularly in those days when competition was pretty tough.
Yeah.
And so I applied to one college, And they said later on, I knew some of the people that were on that committee, and they said the only reason we admitted you was because you wrote an essay describing how you become a Christian, how it turned your life around. On the basis of your academics, we would never have let you. So they gave me 1 semester to prove myself. And I had gone, I went from basically a D level, C minus D plus, to a B plus in college, my first semester that I was there. That was a God thing.
Yeah.
And, I had, when I was in high school, I was not a Christian most of the time. I had no reason, no motivation to do anything. We were all going to be nuclear dust.
Right.
What's the point?
Right.
And now, as a Christian, having been grounded in the Word and having a sense of God's economy and some sense of His will in my life, there was a reason. And so I dug in with a will and did very well through college. I stopped out 3 years, went back and got a master's degree in marriage, family, child counseling from Biola University and Rosemead School of Psychology. And then I went on a few years after that and worked on a PhD at Virginia Tech in marriage and family therapy. I never finished that degree for a whole lot of other reasons, but and then I came back and taught for 20 years at Broad 40. So yeah, I've, tell God your plans and listen for the laughter. It's like, I spent more time in school than I had out of it, I think. So Oregon, and then I went to college in San Francisco, and that was a wonderful time and place for me. The fellowship, and it was a small school. The whole college was in one building. So you saw everybody all the time. It was a very small town, for good, bad, or indifferent. And for me, it was a wonderful experience, a very communal kind of place to be, particularly in the 70s in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I was there when the Jews for Jesus was founded. I knew Moshe Rosen and all those guys before there was a Jews for Jesus. I was privileged to meet some really amazing people who did cool things for the kingdom of God. And then I built a bus into a motorhome. It was the 70s. When I came out of college with a degree in psychology, and I could go and work for, minimum wage, $2 an hour or whatever it was, but there were no jobs for anybody in my field, particularly at my level. And housing was uncertain. It was getting expensive. And so I took a big school bus and built it into a motorhome. And so at least I had someplace to lay my head at night. And it worked out really. I had some help from friends and stuff. It was a wonderful experience. And then ended up back in New Jersey at my folks' place, right in the middle of the gas crisis. We drove cross country. 1979, 1980, with a bus that got 5 miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
When we got 6, we were ecstatic. We had a 20% increase. and I lived there for 3 years, worked for an engineering company. And it was interesting because I used more of my skill as a people person in an engineering company than I ever did my technical skills. And the reason I got the job in an engineering company is because I built the bus. They figured I must know how to use tools. and then the Lord led me back to the program at Biola, again, across country. And I've traveled. I someday I've got to sit down and write down how many times I've driven cross country. I've lost track. It's in the dozens. And then you add in flights, it's even more. So yeah, it's been a very wonderful opportunity through my life so far, and I hope it continues for a while, to do some traveling. With the John Brown thing, I've been going to Kansas at least once or twice a year to do events out there. And you drive from around here, the big Broad Valley, then you get into West Virginia, and it's crinkly mountains, and then you get to southern Ohio, and it's sort of a rolling landscape, and then you hit Illinois, and it's dead flat, pool table. Yeah. And I was out there just a few weeks ago, and someone said, "Oh yeah, you've driven through a lot of different landscapes." Yeah, and I never find it boring. It's sometimes tiring, but it's not boring.
Yeah.
And I savor the differences. And I only covered a third of the country. There's another whole 2/3 beyond that.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a big proponent for not flying. People fly to Colorado and go skiing. You haven't seen anything.
Right.
You got to drive it.
Right.
If you can, walk it. Appalachian Trail, stuff like that. Go do it.
So talk to us a little more about your John Brown interpretation.
Sure.
He was a prominent figure.
That's a nice word for it.
in one of the darkest times, I think, in American history.
I like people have a lot of ideas about Brown, which are inaccurate.
Sure.
I think this is true for people's political convictions in the present day.
Right.
Who are you paying attention to in terms of where to get your facts from?
Yeah.
If I can almost predict, if you tell me where you listen for your news, I can almost predict what your politics are going to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's true about Brown too. Tell me what books you've read about him. Tell me what museums you've been to, and I'll tell you, what you think about him. Or if you haven't read any books about Brown, or you haven't gone to any museums about that, then you're running off of, your fifth grade teacher's prejudices, not facts.
Yeah.
He was a very complex man in very complex times.
Sorry, I have to tell you a story now.
Okay.
My 8th grade history teacher, guy named Mr. Yates, at least once a week, in his words, we would go to the library to find a book for reading pleasure.
Okay.
He would sit in a chair reading the newspaper while the rest of us would just wander around the very, very small library. That was at least once a week.
Good for him.
I mean, it was great, but I don't know what that was. We were supposed to be 8th grade history was the Revolutionary era.
Okay.
So when we would take a test, I'd be like, did we learn any of this?
Oh, I get it. This wasn't a side dish. This was the main course.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. That's another story.
So I was like, I really want to learn about this era.
Yeah.
And I feel like I didn't learn anything. And that was revolution.
Well, that's why I think it's important to go back to education.
Yes.
If we want to shift things down the line 50, 60 years from now.
Yeah.
We've got to begin early. As the twig is bent, so grows the tree.
Right. So then in 9th grade, I don't even remember what it was social studies. So we did civics, which I really liked. That's probably where I get my love of politics. And my teacher had an awesome civics teacher.
Nice.
And then
that's a gift.
10th and 11th grade was 20th century history. One was 20th century U.S. history, and then 11th grade was 20th century world history. And we're getting into like World War II, and I'm like, that's awesome. Let's storm some beaches here. Fully saying that, not knowing when I was an 11th grader what that actually meant.
Sounded good, though.
Right. So I feel like, again, in my history, like you talk about figures like John Brown, I have no frame of reference in my education.
That's better than having a bad frame of reference. I'll start with 0 before I go to negative 12.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
The one thing that I have always thought about is, I didn't learn Thomas Jefferson's faults. I just knew he was a prominent figure.
Right.
When you read the Declaration of Independence, my goodness, that guy.
Oh.
Brilliant.
Yes.
I mean, just an absolute genius.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this listening to guys like Glenn Beck and those guys. I found out that the draft that we have wasn't even his first.
No.
He had written an even a deeper, more thorough draft.
Yes.
And there was a passionate plea in there for us to get rid of slavery.
Absolutely.
Then.
Yeah, remember, Jefferson's the guy who likened slavery to holding a wolf by the ears.
Right.
He was keenly aware of how precarious that situation was.
And I hate that people come down on him and say, oh, well, Thomas J., we want to tear his statue down because he was a slave owner. Like, we're not, that's just one piece of the pie here. Like, yes, he was, but I don't think he was happy about it. It was, like you said, it was the culture in which they were steeped.
Yeah.
Much like we are with
60 years from now, we're going to tear down every statue of somebody who used an internal combustion engine.
Right. Yeah.
We have no civilization without gasoline.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
they could not imagine a world in which Black people could be free and act as peers.
Yeah.
As citizens.
Yeah. So I think, so again, I've always thought, coming up to John Brown in the Civil War, a guy as brilliant as Thomas Jefferson, whether he was a deist or a Unitarian or whatever, or a theist, I guess would be the proper word, he at least recognized, and I do love the Jefferson Bible where he kind of blacks out all the miracles and stuff. Like, that's kind of hilarious. But
God on my terms.
Right, exactly. But again, he at least had a foundation that we are created by God, given inalienable rights.
And
all men are created equal.
Obligation. And I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids are coming up now with nobody above them to be accountable to.
Right.
Not their parents, not their school. There's nobody. And
right.
and thinking as a therapist, putting my therapist hat on, that's a terrifying place for a child to be.
Yeah.
Because you have a gut level perception that the world is a scary place, and if there's nobody bigger than me to deal with it, I'm on my own here, and that can be terrifying for a kid. Yeah. And I think a lot of kids are terrified of that, frankly, way down, and that's where a lot of the anger comes from, and the nihilism, and the cutting, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
because there's nobody bigger than me.
That's a good thought.
Yeah. It's not original,
but that's still good. So Jefferson writing "All men are created equal" at a time when we were not fully living that out,
right?
But then I've always kind of viewed the Civil War as like this was, now we're gonna, I guess, pay the price in blood for those words.
Read Lincoln's second inaugural address. He makes exactly that.
Okay. Yeah.
Every drop of blood taken by the lash is not going to be taken in casualties.
Yeah.
And every piece of property that you gain through slavery is not going to be destroyed through this. We've done this to ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
And North and South both.
Sure.
Those slaves came across on ships that were built in New England, financed by New England banks. This wasn't just a Southern thing. This was our sin.
Okay. Yeah. And so, we are, the Civil War was us paying the price for those words. All men are created. Like, okay, this is what you believe. Now we're going to get like God. It was almost like God is holding our feet to the fire. Like, this is what you say you believe. Now is the time to, enact that.
Yeah.
And so
his children said he acted not out of anger or fear, but out of love. It was love for those. Sorry, I get choked up about this. Passionate guy. It was out of compassion for people who could not help themselves.
Yeah.
Who had been systematically beaten down and disempowered for generations.
Yeah.
Who had been deprived of nutrition in their growing up years, who didn't have the brain capacity in some cases, not because of genetics, but because of maltreatment and abuse.
Right.
And it was compassion that drove him.
Yeah.
In his trial, he says, "You've put me on trial for the golden rule. I love my neighbor as myself."
Yeah.
And you, if I'd done this on behalf of rich people, you would have put up a statue in my honor.
Yeah.
I did this for those who are the least of those, my brother.
Yeah.
And you condemn me for it.
So we're always trying to recommend, although we haven't been very good at it, at least once a month, we try and recommend a good book for the people of our service to read.
You said the right word.
So I was gonna ask, like, what's a good?
I'll give you two.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Can I hold it up to the camera?
Please, yeah.
Okay, I'll show you first, just so you know.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right.
Okay. Where's the?
Yeah.
I'll read them.
Okay.
I'm not showing you the front with my phone number. It's on here. You got to get one of these from me. The first one, and I love, is sort of a great introductory one. A mutual friend of ours, Ed Meliscus, wrote a book called From John Brown to James Brown, which is about the Brown farm and the history of it. And he has about the first third of the book, I think, or so, is about Brown's era. Then the middle part has to do with there was a group called the Black Elks. They couldn't get into the regular Elks, so they formed their own fraternal organization.
Okay.
And they owned it, and they were going to put up like a 300-foot tower with an eternal flame because our emancipation started here, was kind of the thing. It passed from that into being a venue for a guy who brought in musical acts. Obscure people like Tina Turner, Chubby Checker, Aretha Franklin, people nobody had ever heard of.
Yeah.
and James Brown, thus the title. James Brown said his dressing room there was the smallest one he ever had.
Nice.
But that is down near Dargan in southern Washington County, south of us in Maryland. And that's a great book. And there's a whole lot more to the story that's been uncovered since then. So,
okay.
I would recommend that to you. And the other book is by a guy named Lou DeCaro, Dr. DeCaro. And of his like 8 or 12 books he's written about Brown, he's probably the leading scholar alive today on Brown. It's called Fire from the Midst of You. And he's the first guy to go back and look at Brown's theology. Everybody else looked at him as a social figure, but theology drove everything for Brown.
Yeah.
And DeCaro was the first guy to go back and say, well, this is the milieu out of which he was shaped and brought forth these actions. Okay. And unless you understand that milieu, going back to worldview stuff, you won't understand Brown.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. The more I've read, the more people I've talked to who run museums and stuff, he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I have great respect for that book and some others. I'm reading 2 of his right now.
Okay.
One about Brown in Kansas, and one is an edited compilation of his letters from prison while he's awaiting execution.
Huh.
And they're both stunning pieces of work. He's got several more that I want to go to. But I've been to Brown's birthplace in Connecticut. I've been to upstate New York, his farm up there, which was sort of a colony for freed slaves. I've been to the town he grew up in, Hudson, Ohio. I spent 3 days there in the archives. 16-year-old me is going, wow, really? What?
Right.
Why would you do that? and there's other places I want to go to still. I haven't been to, there's a place, I think it's New Richmond, Pennsylvania. It's up above Pittsburgh. That's the longest place he ever lived. He lived there 14 years and ran a tannery. And his first wife is buried there.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know this. He had 2 wives. When his first wife passed away, he had, I think, 6 surviving children. And he hired a housekeeper to help manage this household. And the housekeeper's daughter caught his eye. And so he was very shy about these sort of things. So he wrote a note, said, will you marry me? And stuck it in her pocket when she wasn't looking, in her apron. And he kind of kept an eye on it until she read the note, and she sort of smiled and walked outside. He followed out and said, well, what's the answer? And she said, okay. She was 17 years old, and she took on a 32-year-old man as her husband and 6 kids. And they had another 13.
Holy moly.
He fathered 20 children.
Wow.
Yeah. So an amazing man in many ways. I look at his life and I can say, well, I think I maybe would have made a different decision about that, but then I'm not living in his context fully.
Exactly.
And when you look at the context in which he operated, what he did was amazing in terms of his selflessness and his dedication to the welfare of others above and beyond his own well-being.
Right.
And I think he's a very misunderstood and therefore underrated figure in our history. I think he should be much more celebrated. The problem is, I have a good friend who's a former Marine, and I brought up when I first started interpreting Brown, I told him about it. He says, terrorist. That's only because he killed a Marine, or his men. Somebody killed a Marine, and then I looked at him sort of sidelined. I said, "So, what were the Marines doing defending slavery?" He goes, oh, okay, we're not going to go there. So I think when you begin to appreciate the context surrounding Brown, I think I have taken on a much different view of him. He's often, you sort of get that the painting out in Topeka in the Capitol building, the Bible in one hand and the rifle in the other.
Right.
And it's called the whirlwind, and all around him is all this stuff swirling and bleeding Kansas and all that stuff. And that's really not John Brown. That's Moses.
Huh.
The guy who painted that had another version of that painting, and he went on a trip to Europe and watched all these, Michelangelo and Da Vinci and all these guys paint these figures of Moses leading the people out of Egypt, right? And that's where he got that figure from. That's not based on John Brown's life. It's based on his leading his people out of exile. That's that whole mystique of Moses.
Right.
Brown, I've searched long and hard. Now, I'm not the greatest scholar in all this, but I've searched to find anybody that John Brown actually deliberately killed. Now, it was done at his direction at Potawatomi Creek. There's a whole set of circumstances we could talk about.
Right.
But that was done by probably his son and maybe 2 of the people that were in his militia group at his direction. But I can't find where he deliberately murdered anybody.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of runs counter to the mythology around Brown. And do you want to go down Potawatomi Creek? Or?
Well, we're running up against the clock right now.
Okay.
So
right. Another day.
Well, I was going to say, Chip, before I give you a final word, we're going to have you back on the show. Cause again, we always do this with, I feel like with historians, you just have to have multiple times because you can just tell stories and keep going and going and going. So it's wonderful.
Cool.
Chip, do you have any final things?
Yeah.
Final questions?
Yeah, of course I do. Maybe you could shed a little light on some of the local resources that people could turn to learn more about all this?
Sure. As a matter of fact, every second or third Thursday, go to the Allison Antrim Museum website. They've got a Facebook page too. Our director is very active on Facebook, especially in the Greencastle, Antrim Township pages that are dedicated to that. And we have a speakers meeting. We bring in somebody from the outside, I think 10 months out of the year. We skip a couple in the summertime. And it's all locally focused stuff. It's this coming episode in session in June is going to be about the escape from Harper's Ferry.
Okay.
Some of the raiders escaped and got loose and were not captured. They were not hung. Some who escaped initially got captured later. A couple of them up here at Mount Alto, not too far from where we're sitting. And so he's got a whole slide PowerPoint presentation on that. He's done a lot of research on it. And it's going to be I got to see him do it down in Boonesboro at the Historical Society. I said, we got to bring to Greencastle. So we do that every month. We've got the posts that Bonnie Shockey puts up all the time, several a day. It's wonderful, that are locally put together. There are all kinds of books written about this area in terms of our being a through passage in the Civil War. We're also on the frontier during the 1770s. The very first armed resistance to the British Crown takes place at Fort Loudon, just north of here.
Nice.
And the whole Black Boys Rebellion thing, that's fascinating. And I got to shout out to the Fort Loudon folks. They do they do the best crowd interpretation of historical events I've ever seen, in terms of walking you through the events of the Black Boys Rebellion. Well, were you on the side of the British, the illegitimate government, God save the king, or these ruffians from the frontier? Where do your loyalties lie on these moral issues that they're facing? Of people selling whiskey and guns and hatchets to the Indians, who are then predating upon local people and burning people up and stuff. So I mean, it's a very well done program. It makes you think. It's not a knee jerk. Well, the Americans were right and the British were wrong. No, you start looking through that and you go, well, what would I do? So there's that Conococheague Institute over here, just below name I blanked on the town. Anyway,
I've been there. I don't ask me the town.
Yeah, just south of Mercersburg on the. So there's a lot. We had railroads run through here, different kinds. We used to have a light trolley. I'd love to see somebody bring back the light trolley so I could get on in Shady Grove or Greencastle and ride to Hagerstown or Waynesboro or Chambersburg. I think that would be the coolest thing. I got spoiled living in San Francisco with the trolleys and stuff. I could go anywhere in the city on public transit. I love that.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the Bay Area with the BART system. So yeah, there's a whole lot to be learned around here. That's fascinating. There was an incident just south of here at Searfoss that hardly anybody knows about. But when I tell people that story, like, wow, that's really cool. There's no signage on it. There's nothing. So, I mean, there's a really cool book. If you want another book recommendation, it's called, I think it's Mercersburg in War Times. They sell it at the public library in Mercersburg. And it's all stories of what people experienced going through the Civil War. And it's just chock full of all these really cool stories. One guy got captured by the Confederate cavalry and he got too close to the ones in front and they said, "Roll back." And he got too close to the ones behind him. They said, "Hurry up." And says, "Finally, I just drove to suits myself." I mean, it's stories like that. I mean, what can you not love about that stuff?
Yeah.
So.
It's awesome to live in a place that is steeped in so much history.
And the more you scratch around, the more you find. There's a hermit who lived on the hill behind my house. I own the hilltop. And one of my neighbors told me about this. And so I was digging around up there, pulling trees and clearing space and stuff. We started finding pottery. We found pieces of glass.
Very cool.
We found a chunk of pottery this big, had some writing on it. I didn't know what it was. So I put a picture up on Facebook and some of my historian buddies run museums and stuff. It was a commemorative vase from the War of 1812.
Wow.
What's that doing in the middle of, a forest, former sheep pasture? I mean, on top of my hill.
Yeah.
So it's a mystery still to be solved, but I'm hoping I can figure out who's up there. Yeah. So it's all around. Yeah.
Well, Doug, I'm really looking forward to you coming to our July 1st celebration, celebrating America, seeing your John Brown interpretation. I think it's going to be great. Like I said, we're going to have you on here again.
I'd love to
talk more about. I will admit to you, most of the history, this is how I kind of take in history. I'll watch a movie and be like, oh, that's fascinating. And then I'll find books on it and find out how much they screwed up in the movie.
Do not get your history from movies. I've been on movie sets. I've been in some big films.
Now let me ask you one thing before we go.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're going to ruin this for me, and that's fine. I'm braced for it.
I live
When you're living,
Oh no! Oh, I did the wrong one.
you can't handle the truth.
Yeah. Okay. Here I will. I'll try and handle this.
Okay.
I love the movie Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis. On a scale from 1 to 10, how do you think he did interpreting Lincoln? And the reason I ask is because, number one, I like Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, I think he's a wonderful actor.
Last of the Mohicans, one of my, I don't care how historically accurate it is. I love that movie. The soundtrack, the whole thing is awesome. But I know, at least I read in his preparation, he read every book on Lincoln he could get.
Wow.
And then kind of, put it all together in his mind and, how he does as a method actor.
Right. Yeah.
1 to 10, how did he do?
He did really well. The character in that film that I really liked the most, though, was Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Thaddeus Stevens.
He was. If I was going to be a politician, that's the kind of guy. That's the kind of politician I want to be.
You talked about resources. In Gettysburg, as you come in Route 30 in towards the square on the right, there's a Thaddeus Stevens Museum.
Yep.
Go in and talk to Ross.
Okay.
He is he's a walking encyclopedia on Thaddeus Stevens, and you'll get an education like you can't believe. He's a wonderful.
So Tommy Lee Jones did a good job interpreting him.
I'm not sure what.
That'd be a question for him.
What Ross would say.
Ross.
But in terms of my understanding, it's a very compelling portrayal of him as a driving force for the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
And I what can go wrong with that?
Yeah.
I got one more tidbit for you.
Okay.
John Brown wants to evacuate slaves from the South, just withdraw their labor, kind of an Ayn Rand Atlas Shrugged thing, and just pull them out and then collapse the Southern economy. It wasn't about starting a slave rebellion like Nat Turner and all. And what does Lincoln do when he's campaigning? He says, "Oh, that John Brown thing, we're nothing like those people." He proceeds to progressively carry out Brown's agenda, and the Emancipation Proclamation was basically what John Brown wanted to do. It's very and it's
politics.
The art of the possible.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you so much again, sir, for coming on.
Thanks.
Gotta have to have you on again. So
thanks.
All right, hey, until next time, love the Lord your God with all your heart,
strength.
Oh, that was dirty.
Soul
and mind. I'm totally confused where we are now. Love your neighbor as yourself. May the grace of the Lord Jesus, the love of God the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know. It's been a while.
Dude.